That's right. I'm done with it. I'm no longer listening to the internet t-shirt bros about why it's such a great model. It's cooked. AI has made it so, and that's my belief. And after 7 years of consulting various types of clients, I could say I'm done with it. So let me tell you why.
The game is the game, and the money, that's how we keep score. Yo, word up, cuz. You think you can get there by yourself? Nah, cuz. The game had me messed up for a while. I was paying crazy money, cuz. You have no idea what crazy money is, young man. If I was you, which I wouldn't want to be, but if I was you, I'd reconsider your options. What choice do I have, cuz? Brilliant business for iPad. That's the only choice you need, so don't blow it. Got it?
The whole process of prospecting clients, convincing them, that your services are what they need, I believe is a business model on its last legs. But first, let's start with a definition of what consulting is. I think that would be best. It's the business of providing expert advice, analysis, or strategy to organizations or even individuals for exchange of a fee. The whole process of prospecting clients, convincing them that your services are what they need. I just genuinely believe right now that business model is on its last legs. But first, let's start with a definition of what consulting is. So it's the business of providing expert advice, analysis, or strategy to organizations or even individuals in exchange for a fee, right? A consultant typically diagnoses problems, recommends tailored solutions. They may help or, implement or guide execution, right? And then they charge based on time, expertise, or an outcome. And consulting, if you think about it, is essentially renting your brain to solve other people's problems. But you never own the system, just the stress. So for the past 7 years, have I been stressed? I'd say yes at certain times, absolutely. And that's because of this continuous chase of trying to upsell more brain renting or just dealing with clients whose time is more important than your own in their eyes. So you're forever on the wrong side of the sales spectrum. And as we evolve in business, I've also started to believe that the marketplace has changed and will continue to dramatically change, leaving consulting to be pretty much a thing of the past. For example, what's the pinnacle of consulting? It's probably top 4 accounting firms or consulting for large corporations. But now, when I think about that as an idea of success, I think to myself, is that what I even want? And the answer is no. Right, I've consulted for corporate firms before, and I'll be honest, as much as there is opportunity, there is also a lot of annoyance and stagnation that comes with those opportunities. And not only that, the idea of renting out your brain is quite taxing on your mind, and you're essentially trying to convey ideas all the time that make total sense to you and are tasked with implementing with the resources owned by someone else. It's a constant yo-yo of emotions, and the satisfaction of getting an idea of yours across the line doesn't make the money that you receive that worthwhile sometimes. That's just my opinion. And another thing about consulting is that endless chase and almost begging to rent your brain to a business is absolutely soul destroying at times, and it can fatigue you. It can make you question your purpose and the reason for doing it in the first place. And I started out based on demand, right? Or I guess what I thought was demand. People in my vicinity would ask me how I did something based on my colorful background and experience living and working in multiple countries and continents. So I took it upon myself to write and then build my first course, then my first book, then a second book, then a third book, then a course, then a video course. And after that, I realized from working with a variety of clients that it's just out of my control, the progress of the individual. I then began to see that with small businesses, for example, it was the same restrictions. As much as I would essentially rent my brain to them, I couldn't exactly get them to implement exactly the way I would, even if it was a done-for-you service. And the reason why is there would always be some stumbling block or bottleneck, like money, cash flow, time, staffing issues, personal issues. And in the beginning stages, it's like I would be banging my head against a brick wall. And as time went on, clients became larger businesses with resources, and I started to see the challenges in that also. It's not that I'm against helping people or businesses. I just don't want to trade time for approval anymore. And people don't pay for hours, they pay for results. And results come from insight, not packages, right? And the more I realize this, the more I think the model of consulting, i.e., renting my brain in exchange for hours, is a ridiculous concept. And if you value your ideas, and let's just say those ideas could 5x or 8x a business profits, you are selling your ideas and time for a day rate or a retainer. You're essentially short selling yourself. This is why in the US, the whole freelance brand scaling works as a model for the businesses and the media buyer or brand scaler, because they are paid on performance. Plus, the companies they work with have the resource and capacity to actually pay them. It becomes a fair exchange that way based on the results. But for most consultants on the junior end of the scale, it's painstaking work based on the type of clients they have or attract. And I did a calculation a few years back, which I guess was my indicator, I needed to get out of this business model. It was based on invoices. So I started to look at how much time I was spending with certain clients, traveling, phone calls, all manner of times, by the way, the tasks I was asked to do in comparison to how much I was actually being paid. And after looking deeply, I realized I was actually losing money, right? I wasn't charging enough for the transformation, and I was actually undercharging. So this is when I doubled down on my systems that I have now, and it began the process of unwinding clients and pretty much rebuilding my entire business model. You see now with YouTube and social media overall, you can create the content that attracts people to you. So if you have a product or service, you first need to play the content game. Otherwise, you will forever be trapped in the legacy way of doing business. There's just no way around that. And of course, there are sectors that don't need to rely on social media, as they have the maximum amount of leverage, like energy companies, for example, right? They have minimal competition, so people will find them and buy their services regardless. Whereas consulting, coaching, and pretty much all other information hustlers, they are in a competitive market where it's down to those who have the most attention. Most of them just blend into one after a while. And once you've heard a video on, here's how I make 100K per month, nobody actually really stands out in your mind after that after a while. And they dress the same, they talk the same, and it all becomes a blur. So here is what I'm doing instead. I'm going inverse t-shirt bro, meaning my frameworks will not be the same, my approach will not be the same, my delivery will not be the same, and my strategy will not be the same either. Not just because I want to do the opposite, but because I think there is a different way to achieving the results you want and make sense to you. And as I've mentioned in the previous 48 videos on this channel, I now build the tools I want to see in the marketplace. And these tools are designed for people like you and me, creators, creator entrepreneurs, small teams, 1 to 12 people, or people who want to structure their ideas and thoughts instead of yapping and editing for hours and hours, right? And having bunches of spreadsheets all over the place. I want to be known for selling digital shovels in this digital gold rush in the years to come. And it's essentially productized intellect. I've currently got 16 apps in the App Store with another 3 in production. And what I've learned is that if you have a great idea, you have to make it as accessible as possible, especially if you want it to impact many people. And right now, I build for Apple users, as I'm an Apple user myself, and I'm more than likely going to connect with someone based on the fact we have similar taste levels when it comes to technology. And the market of iPhone users, just for context, is 1.3 billion people. There are approximately 100 million Apple Mac users, which is 15% of the global PC market. And in the USA, the macOS is 29.6% of the desktop market. So I'm more than happy to serve this amount of people to obtain my success. And systemized technology, when you distribute it to millions, gives me a lot more leverage than consulting ever could. And it compensates me adequately for the type of work and the ideas that are generated without the back and forth or renting my brain out, on the cheap. And this is the reason why I'm completely done with consulting. You might be thinking, well, Bobby, what have you actually replaced your services with? Well, the answer is nothing. I have one service available, which is Human Insights. An individual, they might pay for unique insights on a particular topic or problem that they're trying to solve. But that's it. Other than my software subscriptions, right? That's it. The reason for this is design principles. My design principles across system building, thinking, and ideation are unique to me and hold a certain weight based on my life and work and professional experiences. And I'm happy to share insights on particular problems for the individual or business. But that's it. If I want to do any consultative type ideas, then that's what my YouTube is for. And any viewer can get an idea of your worth, your ideas, your unique insights by watching your videos. This is why I say videos are your assets. That is my belief and why I've said goodbye to consulting. So if you want some brutally honest truth about developing your own software and you're thinking about going down that route yourself, then watch this video. I'll share my insights on how it's been for me so far with 16 apps in the App Store. Thanks.